Well, happy Mother's Day to all our wonderful mothers. I'm glad you can join us. And as we honor our mothers, as it's part of God's commandment to do so, and the fourth commandment, isn't it interesting God put a commandment, honor your father and mother. He wants us to honor them, so we're glad to do that. And I know in the United States we do it one day a year. It should be every day, once a week or multiple times, but we at least have the one day a year set aside. We have Mother's Day in May and Father's Day in June. And I'm so glad Father's Day follows Mother's Day, because if you do Mother's Day right, guys, you get a good Father's Day. So it's just they have to outdo you. So it's always a little competition. There's a lot of competition in our house, I'm not going to lie. We have a competitive family. So we do Mother's Day right, and Father's Day is a good day for us. I don't know if you know the origins of Mother's Day. I've been researching some of that and just looking at history.com and took a section of that I'd like to share with you. It just tells us the origins of Mother's Day, celebrated in the United States, dates back to the 19th century. In the years before the Civil War, Ann Reeves Jarvis of West Virginia helped start Mother's Day work clubs to teach local women how to properly care for their children. These clubs later became a unifying force in a region of the country still divided by the Civil War. In 1868, Jarvis originated Mother's Friendship Day, at which mothers gathered with former Union and Confederate soldiers to promote reconciliation. I thought, what a great introduction and how that played out at a time when our country was more divided than the other, to have the mothers come together and help reconcile behind the scenes and help individuals come back together, both the North and the South. I thought was a great tribute to the love and nurture of mothers to be able to do that. And so it's biblical to honor our mothers. And King Solomon, he takes time in his last proverb to do this. In Proverbs 31, we're going to look at a few verses in Proverb, and then what we'll do is at the end, we'll give several of you a chance to honor your mothers, your wives, publicly, and there'll be a microphone that if you don't want to touch it, that's fine. They'll be holding it for you. Anyway, if you'd rather not, or if you want to share, they'll be able to take care of that for you. And it's interesting we would choose Solomon. I remember just briefly, we took a course in Old Testament literature we're going through, and we went through the Song of Songs. We went through that, and that was written by Solomon also. And I remember Dr. Enns, our professor, was there, and he was going through this letter, if you will, this love letter Solomon wrote to his wife. So I raised my hand, said, "Yes, Joe." I said, "Which one?" Some of you will get that because Solomon had 600 wives and 300 concubines. I said, "Was this a form letter?" So he said, and I remember saying, the Shunammite. I don't know how many wives he wrote the letter to. Anyway, we have one copy of a letter he wrote to one of his wives. And anyway, I just thought that was a little bit funny. But he has a lot of advice for us. And he does honor his mothers well. So we're going to go through Proverbs, sections of it, 31. And we're going to start with verse 10. So Proverbs 31:10. "Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies." And you read through this, and first of all, there's a challenge to find a virtuous wife. It doesn't mean every woman is going to be virtuous, unfortunately. It'd be easy if everyone was, if we lived in a perfect world where every woman was a godly woman, every man was a godly man. That would be amazing. We don't live in that place. So he asks a question, who can find a virtuous wife? Which means it takes time, it takes getting to know someone, getting to know their character, and seeing if they are virtuous, if they're full of virtue, if they hold the virtues, the godly virtues of the Scriptures. If they hold that, and you find one, that's something that you want to latch onto. That's something you want to bring home to your mother, right? Her worth is far above rubies. So we're told that there's value in a virtuous woman. We're grateful to have that. And if you find a woman who is virtuous, that's the one that you want to have for a life mate. Now, we have 5 boys. None of them are married yet, but we've been praying for our boys and their mates. And, of course, Errol, we've been praying also from the time they're young that they would find a wife that would complement them, would help them, one of these virtuous women that they would link up with and become a life partner with and help them as they walk through what we call life together in that journey. So it's a search. Not every woman you're going to come across is virtuous. And I remember when Caleb went on his first cruise, I was afraid. I was. He goes on a cruise by himself. I'm thinking, you know how many women are going to be there looking for a man? And I had to talk to him. I said, son, please don't come home married, because the captain of the ship can perform one. I said, please don't do that. I don't care if you come home with a tattoo, but please just come home with a wife. So anyway, he came back with neither, so we're grateful. But it's a search. It's a search that you have to put time and energy into it and spend time looking for someone that has this godly character that's being described here. And when you find it, it's worth more than anything the world has to offer. Especially when you go through tough times in life. If you have the godly wife next to you to help you through that, that will mean the world to you. You'd give all of your wealth for someone like that at that time. So he tells us, first of all, who can find a virtuous wife? It's a challenge. It's a search. And when you do find one, know how valuable that is. And so he does. He says her worth is far above rubies, which is one of my favorite gemstones, by the way. Incredible. And it's just more valuable to have a woman of this than it is to have treasures of the earth. Now, if we look at verse 11, the heart of her husband safely trusts her. He will have no lack of gain. It's great when a husband has a life mate that he trusts and says he safely trusts her. That when he's gone, he knows things are going to go well. He doesn't have to worry about anything going on behind the scenes. The best interest in mind. And it's great to be able to have that he can have peace of mind trusting her with everything. Because it adds in there that he'll have no lack of gain, that everything is being taken care of behind the scenes, and trusting her with that, so everything is remaining smooth. And one woman I think of is Billy Graham's wife. Can you imagine what it'd be like? You go and you marry this young man, and next thing you know, he's traveling the entire world preaching gospel, doing God's work, and you're at home by yourself with all these kids more times than not. And I remember once they interviewed her and they talked to her a little bit, and the reporter asked, well, after how tough it was for her, he said, well, have you ever considered divorce? She said, oh no. Murder, yes. Divorce, no. But she just played it off. But how he had to trust her, traveling the world and having all these things go behind the scenes and still running a household, making all the decisions that she had to make. And all of her kids weren't little angels, you understand. I read Franklin Graham's book, Rebel with a Cause. And I remember one section in there reading that he was tormenting one of his sisters one day. And his mother said, Franklin, you do that one more time, I'm throwing you in the trunk. And he said, I wonder if she'd really do that. So he did it again. And the car pulled over. She grabbed him by the ear, opened the trunk, and threw him in there and shut the lid. And then the whole way home, she was like, I guess she meant that. But here you are. The heart of her husband safely trusts her. He has nothing to worry about with a godly wife. It puts him at ease. And he can trust her with everything, and so everything will continue, and he has no lack of gain. You know, I don't think they had sale signs back then either, or clearance sections. Anyway, no lack of gain. Now you have those things on your phone, right? Your wife goes, bing, bing, bing. You find out who's spending on your card. People monitor that, but they didn't have that. He didn't have to worry about it. Look at verse 12 with me. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. This virtuous woman does good for him all the time. And that's God's design for the husband and wife. Put them together, be co-laborers, called a paraclete, someone that comes alongside and encourages and helps you in every way possible. And that's what this says. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She is there to help him. We know that behind every great man is a greater woman. And we know that the driving force behind that a lot of time is the woman who helps a man to be successful in all that he does. That she goes the extra mile. She helps. She does things. Sometimes she even picks out his clothes and does all these things for him just to make sure. Do you know those socks don't match with that? Whatever it is, she is behind the scenes helping. And she does good and not evil all the days of her life. And some of you who've been in bad marriages, you understand, man, wouldn't it be a blessing to have someone that wanted to be with you and partner with you and help you all the way through? And you could see why Solomon would say her worth is far above rubies. And so she does him good all the days of her life, that she is committed to serving their family, helping the children, doing anything that needs to be done to make sure their marriage and family is successful. And there's so many things that go on behind the scenes that women do to make the family work and to help her husband in the ways that he does. Now you think about this and how it plays out. And he goes to verse 15. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and a portion for her maidservants. It says that this woman is committed even before anyone else gets up. She's the one up. And I know some of you women are not morning people. I get that. But Solomon's talking about a woman that gets up and takes care of her household and makes sure that even other people who are not part of her household takes care of them also, the neighbors and friends. Usually the women are the first one to reach out if something happens in the family of someone else. They say, we need to do this for so-and-so. And they'll lead the charge and they'll make sure it's done because they have that nurturing, loving aspect about them. And so we're grateful to know that she rises while it's night. She provides food. She makes sure everything's taken care of. Once again, behind the scenes going up and making sure that all the needs are met and make sure that all the meals are cooked and prepped. I don't know how many times I can come home and say, well, what's for dinner? And she'll know what's for dinner. She's planning it. And sometimes she'll say, not very often, I thought you would take care of that. Listen, anytime that happens, we're having pizza. I'm going to just tell you right now. Can you do dinner tonight? Pizza. And that's what we have. So now I can cook. I like cooking food. I'm not opposed to that. But they take care of things that way and make sure all the food for the household is taken care of and make sure other neighbors and other people around her have their needs met also. Look at verse 23 with me. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Because of her faithfulness, it's a testimony, and he can sit there with honor that he's known in the community. At the gates would be where the community met. And her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Because of faithful wife behind him, it's a testimony to others about him, and he can have that seat of honor. And I'm so grateful for a wife like that myself. And I'm known in the community. I've been here 20 years, believe it or not, 20 years here at this church and longer in the community. And a lot of people know me, and I can say a lot of them know me because of my wife and what she has done and what she's helped us to attain here. Because I can tell you, honestly, when we first inherited Hillside, if Christy would have said, I'm not up for it, we would not be here. It was a decision that we had to make together. And when she was committed to that, that's when we knew we'd stay at Hillside. We prayed about it. We sought it. But you need to understand, it was a mess. We inherited a mess, and the Clarks would know. They came and put the foundation here and helped out, and it was still a mess. We inherited a big mess. We did. And I'm so grateful to Pastor Richard and Celeste for coming, helping do the foundation work. And when they went to another ministry, they asked us if we'd like to take over or close the doors. And the church came to us and asked us. And we looked at everything. I remember Pastor Clark, going over the budget with me. And I was like, I took a deep breath and I was like, man, that's a lot of money. Because we had to come up with, we had 12 people. And we had to meet a budget. And we didn't have it. And I was full-time in secular world and pastoring here. And I remember the most they could pay me was $25 a week. That's what I started out with, working full-time and getting $25 a week from the church. And there are times when the treasurer came and said, Brother Joe, we can't pay you this week. I was like, that's okay. It's okay. It was bad. And I remember those days, and at any point, if Christy had said, that's it, I'm done, we would have had to leave. But she didn't. And she stuck it out, and I'm so grateful for that we're here in a community. Our kids have been raised in one place, and we homeschooled from the beginning, and I'm glad that we did. And part of it was like, we don't know when we're going to move. We don't know. Pastors move all the time from churches to churches, and you have no stability. And